Here we go.
Okay.
A special edition of Costas Now premieres Wednesday, September 6th.
And now, the HBO Late Night series, Real Time with Bill Maher.
Here at Hezbollah, we've been serving the needs of angry Arabs since 1982. And we don't just do terrorism. At Hezbollah, we provide child care, health care, and meet all your insurance needs.
When my car bomb broke down on the side of the highway, Hezbollah had a truck there within minutes.
When my Hubble was flattened by an Israeli rocket, Hezbollah cut me a check that afternoon.
Hello, I'm Kenny Jihad, your friendly Hezbollah agent. When Zionist lapdogs turn your life upside down, don't you want a trusted name you can count on? Hezbollah! We're the severed hands people. Hezbollah! Throw a piece of the rock!
Hezbollah is a subsidiary of No State Insurance.
It's good to see you, too. Thank you. That's too much excitement. That's why we had to take away your gels and liquids. This kind of... Thank you. I missed you, too. We've been gone since May 12th, and I tell you, thank you, sir. A lot has happened. Israel went to war. They kicked Pluto out of the solar system. And I lost 87 pounds on Celebrity Fit Club. No, I tell you what's new. The Republicans have a new talking point on Iraq. It's about time they got one. The new one is, if we don't fight them there, they'll follow us home. How stupid. Bad question. Okay. There's a representative, a Republican named Kurt Weldon, who said, we either fight them over there or we fight them here in our supermarkets. Have you ever been to that Ralph's on Sunset at 3 in the morning? I don't think Al-Qaeda has the guts. I really don't. Yeah, how come Israel can fight a war in a month, but we can't? The Lebanese who are returning home now to their devastated homes in southern Lebanon, they say they have no idea of the scope of the destruction. And the reason why they have no idea? Because every time they turned on CNN, they were talking about Jean Benet. I kid CNN. CNN, to mark the 5th anniversary of 9/11, is going to be replaying their original coverage of that day. Let's just hope that President Bush doesn't tune in and go, oh my God, they've done it again. But seriously, what is going on with this John Benet situation? This John Mark Carr guy, the guy who killed John Benet, in his mind... I mean, his ex-wife says he didn't do it. Now the father and the brother in Alabama, where, by the way, John Benet is considered over the hill. They... Don't make me come back there. They say that they can clearly remember that on that Christmas of 1996, John Mark was home. It was a normal Christmas. He was fucking the cat and masturbating to Full House. There was nothing unusual. No, I just don't think he did it. He is obviously a creepy weirdo who lives in a fantasy world of his own. And his deal with Paramount is over. That's... completely... Yes, it's been a tough week on celebrities. Tom Cruise got axed. Pluto. A panel of scientists voted to kick Pluto out of the solar system. And, you know, they tried to explain the science of this to President Bush. But then they got fed up and just told him it was destroyed by the Death Star. Speaking of dying planets, Earth is in trouble. A new study, get this, found that in Greenland, polar bears' genitals are shrinking. How they measure this, I don't know. Who would go up to a polar bear and measure his balls? But okay. Due to industrial pollutants, this is what's happening. And the Bush administration, of course, denying the science. They said there's a reason the polar bear's package is smaller this year. They just got out of the water. What? Now, you heard about this? The new season of Survivor, they are going to be dividing the tribes by race. Oh, my God, what a bad idea. They're pitting whites against blacks, Hispanics against Asians. They said they got the idea from Karl Rove. And CBS says this is the perfect lead-in for the new series, CSI Hymietown. Speaking of Mel Gibson, listen to this. Mel Gibson apparently has been making secret phone calls to Hollywood's top Jews to apologize for his big anti-Semitic rant. Now, I'm half Jewish, so Mel called me collect. And, you know, I said to him, I really don't care about any religion, but as long as you're apologizing, how about one for Lethal Weapon 4? Thank you, lady. Where have you been the whole show? And you know that if you use an Apple computer, they are recalling the batteries because apparently they burst into flames. So if you're surfing the net and you feel a burning sensation in your lap, it's either your battery or that chick you met on MySpace. I kid, you know. Oh, I kid, the sexually promiscuous. And by the way, good news for them. The FDA, you heard this yesterday, said they will now allow the Plan B morning after pill without a prescription. Thank you, hussies and sluts. How about a big hand for Plan B, or as Britney Spears calls it, Plan A? Yeah, it is the first drug that will be sold over the counter, so you don't have to worry when you get bent over the counter. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show. We got Cleland, the former senator, Vali, Nasr, Christopher Hitchens. A little later I'll be talking with Elvis, Costello, and from the Daily Kos, Markos, Moulitsas. But first, he's the groundbreaking movie director whose new documentary, When the Levees Broke, now airs on HBO. The great Spike Lee is right here. Spike! How are you?
Hello.
You look like you're dressed for Mardi Gras as it is now, Spike.
It's Friday night in New York.
So, listen, I have to tell you, great work, first
Thank
of
you
all.
very much.
This documentary...
Thank you.
You are a powerful man in the hands of your craft. That was really something. And I have to say, I was watching that documentary Monday and Tuesday, I guess it aired.
Right.
Same nights I was watching on the news Hezbollah in southern Lebanon the day after the Israelis handing out cash. Right there. People were rebuilding their homes. They had the sidewalks cleared the next day. Who takes care of their people better, FEMA or Hezbollah?
Well, I think that's a question for the residents of New Orleans. They say FEMA is a four-letter word, is a dirty word. So FEMA gets no respect in the Gulf region.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a lot of anger in that film, which I think is appropriate. And you make a pretty big deal of showing Kanye West when he was on that charity show saying George Bush doesn't care about black people. Mm-hmm. I always thought George Bush doesn't know about black people.
Same thing.
I thought if he cared, if he knew, he might not care. But what do you think? You think he was right?
I think when Kanye was talking about Bush, he doesn't know the man personally. He's talking about the policies of him and the administration. It took the federal government 5 days to show up. It took him, President Bush, 12 days to set foot in the mud of New Orleans. So, you can't go by talk, go by actions. And like everyone else was watching these people on roofs, screaming, dying, drowning, he was not there. The federal government was not there. So I think actions speak louder than words.
But do you think there's something deep-rooted behind that? I mean, I make a joke of this all the time, that Republicans are bad at sex. Mm-hmm. And that accounts for a lot of our policies. But I think it's actually true. And New Orleans, to me, represents everything that right-wingers hate. It's black, and it's sexy, and it's French, and liberated.
But here's the thing, though. There's a lot of...
You think that's why they... Yeah, go.
It's not just a black-white thing. I think class has a lot to do with it, too. Because it's funny. I was in Venice when all this was happening. But when I got to New Orleans, I was amazed to see in St. Bernard's Parish got demolished just as much as the Lower Ninth Ward. But they never showed the St. Bernard's Parish on television. You saw black people in the Superdome, black people in the convention center, black people looting. And that was it. So I got a lot of education, numerous trips I made down there shooting the documentary.
And speaking of black and sexy and liberated, I saw She Hate Me on cable the other day, and I had seen it.
On cable?
Wait a second.
They pulled it.
Wait, let me finish. I had seen it in the theater.
Right.
Then I saw it in a hotel room on the movie service. I have the DVD. I can't stop watching it, and I'm sure that the socioeconomic points that you make in the film are what's compelling me, but those hot girl-on-girl scenes.
Well, look, we moved on to when the levees broke.
Yeah.
No, first was Inside Man, then when the levees broke.
But those scenes between the two women, and then between the man, who I assume is you in a fantasy,
Between what men? There's no sin between two men.
I don't have a question. I'm just asking if you're going to make a sequel.
Now, it's funny. My wife, Time, we were just talking about it. I said I was going to do She Hate Me Again and Girl 6 2.
See you in divorce court. Okay. So
that's what she said.
I know you're on vacation. I don't know if you saw the New York Times the other day, but Bob Herbert wrote a column talking about this book by Juan Williams called Enough, and I want to read a statement from Bob Herbert, who is an African-American columnist for the New York Times. He said, if white people were doing to black people what black people are doing to black people, there would be rioting from coast to coast.
What's the context of that quote you just read me?
Oh, come on. You know the context better than I do.
He's commenting on Juan Williams' book?
Yes, which is called Enough, as in we've had enough.
Oh. Look,
right,
I know
you're on vacation. You don't have to answer.
I'm off vacation now.
But that's a pretty provocative statement from such a mainstream African-American writer as Bob Herbert. If white people were doing to black people what black people are doing to black people.
But he's saying that about Juan Williams' book, or just young black men killing young black men in the streets of America?
I think that's what it is.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, that's what, even before Katrina hit, New Orleans was reaching its 200th homicide. Most of them, young black men killing young black men, a lot of the stuff drug-related. It's picked up after Katrina and the breach of the levees, and this is something that has to be addressed, and I think that African Americans can't try to sweep this under the rug. It's epidemic.
Okay. Spike Lee, I thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Go back to reading a book on the beach.
I'm in New York.
You deserve it. All right, my next guest is a musician who is also contributing to Katrina disaster relief and is also celebrating his birthday today, Elvis Costello. Hey. Elvis, how you doing?
Doing just fine.
First of all, I am tremendously honored that you would interrupt your birthday celebration to talk to the likes of us, because I am a long-time fan, big fan. I put my Elvis playlist on my iPod coming into work today, and I wished I had a longer drive. How does it feel to be 52?
Just great. I never felt better in my life, and I look forward to my second childhood.
Well, you certainly, I must say, you have worn well over the years for us. I mean, I think back to 77, I think, is when we first, you first burst on the scene. And, you never had a scandal. You never did anything stupid. You never embarrassed yourself. Your records were always good.
I wouldn't go that far, but, nice of you to say so.
Yeah. I mean, for people, now I just turned 50 in January, for people our age, the Rolling Stones, thank God for them, right? Because they show that you can actually be sexy into your 60s. You can fall out of a tree and get right back up.
I'm working on this chair, Bill. I'm working on this chair.
So now you're here because
you
you have a very deep connection to Katrina also, which I'm not quite...
Well, it really, I was exactly where I am now in British Columbia when the news hit, and I was fortunate enough over the course of the benefit events that were put together to get into a collaboration with Alan Toussaint, a great New Orleans songwriter and piano player who I'd worked with in the past, but working with him and seeing his stoicism while losing his home along with so many other musicians, and seeing the way he's carried the music out around the world now. We got to make a record together, to tour together this summer, has been a lesson to me. His belief that everything will return, despite much material evidence to the contrary, And
as a British guy, as a foreigner, when you look at America and you see that we have a disaster, I mean, natural disasters happen, but that 6 months later we couldn't even get the streets cleaned, and the bureaucratic nightmare that it all was. I mean, what do foreigners think now when they look at America and we act so retarded?
Well, I don't think that's true of everybody. I mean, I think the musical community did what they could. They gather together and they do shows and they make records and they put out.
Come on, the musical community isn't who.
But it's a drop in the bucket, as you well know, against that which is needed. There's a growth industry in opportunism and carpetbaggers who will go in and try and redesign that town, but they're fighting against the spirit of a very resilient town. You made mention of its cultural riches, and that which New Orleans has given to the world is the reason why so many people are concerned. What you've got to be really concerned about is the fate of people along the Gulf Coast who don't even have a song to sing about their town. Biloxi Gulfport took the full force of the natural disaster of Katrina, while the man-made disaster of the flooding due to the breach in the levee was that which destroyed New Orleans so effectively. What happened after that, as you know, is just an incredibly tardy response at almost every level of government, but the people with the most resources are the federal government.
But it's still a tardy response.
Halfway across the world in a matter of days, you can surely come to the aid of your own citizens in a shorter order of time.
Yes, but what I'm asking is that it's a year later, and in a lot of ways we haven't still come to the aid of our citizens. It looks like we're a pitiful, helpless giant, to use President Nixon's phrase from years ago.
Well, maybe
that we can't get something.
Maybe the resources are too stretched, Bill. Maybe the self-appointed role as policeman of the world is too much. Even if you see the disaster of the invasion of Iraq, then you can see that if you can't fix your own country, you can't go around fixing others. However much you may despise the regimes, that we do business all the time with regimes that are despicable and murder and disappear people, and we have no compunction about dealing with them. There are many reprehensible regimes around the world with whom we're in bed, or rather our administrations are. I speak about the country I live in, which is largely America, and the country that I come from, England.
And the country you come from, only 1% of British citizens believe that the actions that we took, the British and the Americans in Iraq, has made us safer. How do you account for such a difference between that country and our country? Are they just smarter?
It's a smaller country, you've got to remember, and it's also a lot closer. it's a smaller place. The communities are closer together. It's shoulder to shoulder over there in England, and people go on about England they have a lot more experience with on the ground with terrorism in the community. There are people with very strong living memory of being bombed from the air, not just on one catastrophic occasion, but consistently over 5 years. People of my parents' generation, so their attitude is bound to be different, isn't it? And maybe it's, if you're in the middle of this country, there's a good chance you don't really care for a lot of the people that live on the coast, much less know where certain countries are. And if you've got people singing songs about their ignorance of geography, as you will hear if you tune in certain country stations, you're in a fairly desperate situation. But you can find really decent, caring people throughout this entire nation of America. I've come here for 30 years. I live here a lot of the time, and you will find people who will completely turn any generalization, any simplification that you make about America on its head. Absolutely in every town. I don't believe there's any one part of the country where you will find people completely bigoted or ignorant. It just isn't true. And it's what would give you hope.
Elvis Costello, thank you for your insight. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? All right, let's meet tonight's panel. All right, he is a contributing editor for Vanity Fair. His most recent book is Thomas Jefferson, Author of America. The always fascinating Mr. Christopher Hitchens, right over here.
Thank you.
Christopher.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
He is a professor at the Naval Postgraduate School. His new book is The Shia Revival. I actually read it. Vali Nasr, how are you?
Nice to be here. Nice to see you, Senator.
And he is the former Democratic senator from Georgia, joining us as our returning champion, Max Cleland. Max, how are you, brother? Good to see you. Okay, so now, Christopher, I was talking to your fellow British man there, Elvis Costello, a second ago. What do you make of the fact
He sounds Irish to me, I've got to say.
He's born in London and then moved to Liverpool.
A lot of them are. No shame in that. No shame.
You're contrarian about nothing. Okay. He's British. You're British. 1% of the British people think that the war in Iraq has made us safer. Now, I would never accuse the Americans as to be quick to catch on to something, but it was in the paper the other day. Americans now see the war in Iraq as distinct from the war on terror. Only took them 4 years. 51% of those surveyed, no link between Iraq and the broader fight against terrorism. Is this something we should celebrate? I think it is.
I do too. I will say to you, after 6 years on the Senate Armed Services Committee and 1 year on the 9/11 Commission, 7 years of looking at this, it's painfully obvious to me that it's still Al-Qaeda stupid. I think that is our focus. That should be our focus. I think it's a massive disaster that we have not gone after and killed or captured Osama bin Laden, and we bogged our troops down in Iraq.
And what about this talking point that they're going to, if we don't defeat them there, they're going to follow us home like a cat?
Well,
no, I don't think so.
Even if it was not correct, that was not the correct assumption there, that we're connected. But it's also not a correct assumption to say that they're not connected now. In fact, in some ways, Iraq might become like an Afghanistan of the 1980s.
But we made it that way.
But we got to fix it now. So
we got to fix it now. Yeah.
Then, if the senator and the professor are correct, and who am I as a member of this apparent 1% cultural elite of the English to disagree, then Mr. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi was totally wasting his time when he went to all the trouble of renaming his organization, with the permission of bin Laden, which he sought, and Mr. Zawahiri, Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia. And when he started a religious war, a sectarian war, in their name, when he killed innumerable Americans, but mainly killed Iraqis, and we killed him, much more dangerous man, in my opinion, than bin Laden. All that was under a misapprehension. He was, what, a fake. He was making all this up.
But there was the point is there was no Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia before we went.
There was. Yes,
there of course wasn't.
Mr. Zarqawi was correctly identified. The one thing Colin Powell got right in his UN presentation.
You know what?
Identified as having moved from Afghanistan to Iraq in a hard country to get into or out of long before the coalition arrived in Mesopotamia.
You know that's not true.
Matter of fact. Matter of sheer fact.
You know that when Saddam Hussein was in power, he never would have allowed any other rival power faction, whether it was Al-Qaeda or anybody else.
It wasn't a rival, it was a collaborator. You're
Come
quite right.
on.
You're quite right. You're quite right. You're quite right. Nobody
Okay.
got in or out of Iraq unless Saddam Hussein said so. So how come Mr. Zarqawi is in northern Iraq trying to kill the Kurdish leadership, who, as is part of his jihad, who are Saddam's, by coincidence, main enemies? You can believe anything you like, but you'd have to believe a lot to say that that was coincidence. A lot. By the way, very good that you didn't let Spike Lee pretend he didn't know what you meant by that question. So don't look at me as if I'm dumb either.
I would never look at you as like...
I'm a member of the most elite 1% of the English, according to you. Handle with care. Contents under pressure.
Yeah. Look, I'd be the...
Who was that?
Snakes on a plane.
Yeah.
And speaking of planes, the fact that the British foiled this London terror plot on the airlines, and we saw how they did it, through police work. Now, when Kerry ran in 2004, he said, you know, terrorism, the fight against terrorism, really is won on a law enforcement level. And Bush made a big campaign thing about it. Like, John Kerry, weak on terrorism, because he thinks we can win the fight on terrorism with law enforcement. But you know what? That's what it is. It's good police work. It's not armies that are going to win this battle. Isn't that what that proves?
Let me say something here. I would rather, instead of police work, I would rather use the phrase that the war against terrorism should be highly, and can be, and should be highly intelligence-driven. Obviously, there's not much intelligence in the White House right now, but you've got to have allies that help you with your intelligence, and you've got to put together a group of people that can infiltrate, which is exactly what Scotland Yard did, with human intelligence. Now, the NSA snooping and pooping on this country, you know, is snooping and pooping. Is in many ways not only unconstitutional, which I think our dear friend here would agree with, but the real effectiveness in terms of going after terrorism and the terrorist attacks and terrorist cells comes with human intelligence. That's the most difficult for us to achieve. Yeah. But that's what we ought to be doing.
I'm so sorry, Professor.
No. There's also another side to it, is that it's also a battle of hearts and minds. It's difficult to do police work if you are engaged in wars and conflicts, and you have anti-Americanism growing. That makes it very difficult to try to deal with this.
And your book is all about the fact that really we've stumbled into this giant war between the Shiites and the Sunnis. And I don't know how much Americans can relate to this, except maybe through Protestants and Catholics who fought each other, you know, tooth and nail 5 centuries ago in Western culture. And there's a lot of differences. But basically, this is a big battle that's looming, and now they're in the middle of this civil war that's starting in Iraq. And we really have no place in here. It's not helping our cause. It's only distracting us.
If John Kerry was right, then the man who mixed the chemicals for the 93 attack on the World Trade Center, Mr. Yassin, an Iraqi, wouldn't have been released by the FBI as he was, having been caught mixing the chemicals, and go straight back to Iraq, where he was, and still is, until recently under protection of Saddam Hussein. The FBI let us down, I think, there. Police work, bad. The next attack on the same World Trade Center, after the others had been convicted by relatively good police work, comes from a state power, another one, Afghanistan, where the CIA can only say when George Tenet sees the planes hit the towers, hey, I hope it's nothing to do with those guys in the flight schools in the Midwest. That was the only comment made by George Tenet of our famous CIA. Our police agencies completely failed us. We should be very glad that we had armed forces willing to take out the Taliban and Saddam Hussein and take the fight to the enemy. We should be proud of what they've done.
Just because there was a massive intelligence failure on our part.
No, we are proud of them. Of course we're proud of them. But that doesn't mean we think the policy is right. And by the way, George Bush asked the other day in his press conference, or he was asked about this situation, and he said something along the lines of, I've never questioned anybody's patriotism who disagreed with me.
Full feathers.
Exactly. You of all people, this should make your head explode.
He went after John McCain. He went after me in 2002. They swift-boated John Kerry in 2004,
Right.
and then now they're trying to swift-boat and undermine the character and courage of Jack Murtha in Pennsylvania. I'm not going to let
Another
that happen.
veteran.
I'm going to be part of a Jack Murtha effort. I think, and bets for Jack Murtha.
I think what the senator said should
what
be
I'm
written in
part
stone.
of.
I think what the senator said should be written in stone and distributed to all American families. And I think everyone should also agree to say that people like MoveOn.org and the others who say that President Bush is Adolf Hitler and present his picture with a swastika and a Hitler moustache and say that he conspired to bring down the World Trade Center and that he sent a missile into the Pentagon should be denounced by the Democrats. Wouldn't that be fair?
They do denounce that.
Wait, I'm asking the senator.
Absolutely.
Good.
I would denounce that.
Well done.
But here we have people.
Thank you for serving that red herring for us.
Oh, you think? But don't you think?
So you think that's not
I'm saying there's not any respectable Democrat.
It's not to impugn the president's patriotism to say that he's like Hitler?
But nobody. What I'm saying, Chris, is that nobody credible does do that.
Who do you call credible? Ramsey Clark, Michael Moore?
What?
These are the
Michael
people
Moore.
who do these demonstrations.
I don't think
They make the most unbelievably opprobrious accusations against the Republic and its president. And I think that deserves to be repudiated.
We're talking about who's impugning patriotism, whose patriotism.
Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, Jack Murtha, who has said that the president's policy in Iraq has no clothes and is calling for the right policy here, that is, redeploy our troops out of harm's way, reconstitute them, bring our Guard and Reserve home to guard this nation, and refocus our efforts on Osama bin Laden and his terrorist cadre. That's the right approach. And what happened on the floor of the United States House was that Jack Murtha, 30 years in the Marine Corps, 30 years in the House, was called a coward. And they've had demonstrations out there in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. They called him a traitor. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit by and let this happen. We're going to have a demonstration September 30th in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for Jack Murtha. And anybody interested?
And they're, by the way, they're already trying to win.
They're
already trying to win the next election based on the same old trick of fear. But it's really about Iran now. I read in the paper the other day that there are Republican congressmen who are saying the CIA is not doing their job because they're not scaring us enough about Iran. And they've tried to combine this war that Israel just had with Hezbollah into the war we have in Iraq and saying it's really World War III. And when they say that, it makes me think they really want World War III.
Well, I mean, to some extent, there was surprises in the Lebanon war that the Hezbollah had weapons that nobody expected they had. They had tunnels and bunkers that nobody expected they had. There was an intelligence failure, not only the U.S.'s, but also Israel's. Yeah. They didn't know enough, and that's a source of problem. But Iran is not as easy to sort of bite onto the way Iraq was. Regardless of how much you try to make it into a bogey, it is just too big. Our hands are tied in Lebanon, in Iraq. And the idea of sort of trying to galvanize for war is not as convincing.
What do you mean that's the root of the problem? Who wants a third world war? The Iranian president says that one member state of the United Nations should be wiped physically from the map with all its people.
Yeah.
He says the United States is a satanic power. His members of his government, named members of his government, have been caught sponsoring death squads. He's lied. He's lied to the European Union about his nuclear program.
But you know that
He says he believes the Messiah is about to come back. Who's looking for a war here?
So does George Bush, by the way.
President Bush has said...
That's not facetious.
That's not facetious. Your audience, which will clap apparently anything, is frivolous.
I'm just saying that what the president of Iran and the president of America have in common is that they both are a little too comfortable with the idea of the world coming to an end.
Up like that. The president has said, quite in great contrast, before the podium of the Senate, I think applauded by most present, in his State of the Union address, that we support the democratic movement of the Iranian people to be free of theocracy. Not that we will impose ourselves on them, but if they fight for it, we're on their side. That seems to be the right position to take. Jeer all you like.
Well, no, I think Christopher is actually correct. There's no dispute about the negative things about the Iranian government. That it is a problem, that it does support terrorism, that it has been a bad influence, but the problem is that it's also got a lot more powerful in the past 4 or 5 years. The issue is not whether it's good or bad. The issue is how you deal with it. And the Iraq model just is very dangerous to try to apply the Iraq model to Iran because it may backfire.
I mean, I have no... I'm not going to defend Iran. I think it's a dangerous country. But aren't they mostly dangerous because they are like a cornered animal. They fear what we're going to do for them.
Sure.
They're in the axis of evil. They saw what happened in number 1 on the axis of evil, so that they think that they're next.
There's a guy now, we should have a moment of silence for him if there was time, a Fox News journalist, member of my profession, fellow citizen, being held in a dungeon in some horrible cellar in Gaza by a group of extremists that's making war on the Hamas government in Gaza. And they say the Hamas is much too moderate for us. We'll kill this guy if all Muslim prisoners, as they call it, are not released from American jails. Were these people driven into a corner? Was it our bad policy that made them behave like this? What kind of masochists are you?
That's a different story. That's Israel. And on Israel, I've
origin
been
of
the
this
first
is
to
what it
applaud
is.
President Bush. I say he's our best president we ever had on Israel. I think it's for the wrong reasons. I think it's because he thinks Jesus is coming back and he's got to go home. But let me ask you this about President Bush, because Joe Scarborough on Scarborough Country a couple of weeks ago introduced this question, is Bush an idiot? I think the science is in on this. Why this is still an open debate, I have no idea, but they actually had people debating whether George Bush is an idiot. One guy said yes, and one guy said no, he just plays one on TV. But the idea, I guess, from the other side on George Bush is that he's not an idiot, he's just not articulate in front of the cameras. But, you get him off stage, he's razor sharp.
Well, look at what Colin Powell's chief of staff said after Colin Powell left the administration. He said that the Vice President Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, had formed a cabal and hijacked American foreign policy. I think that's exactly what's happened. And I think the President has let them do that.
And you think if he wasn't an idiot, he wouldn't?
Is that an IQ question? That's the answer to how stupid he is. That there's a...
Well, I think it is relevant.
This cabal of extremely intellectual Straussian philosophers is all working for this moron. I'll tell you what I think. I wrote myself when the President was only a governor of Texas and a candidate that his eyes were so close together that he could get by with a monocle. And I've done my share. I've done my share on this, and my colleague Gail Sheehy has written, I think, very convincingly that he's a dyslexic. And that, by the way, that is a disability and should be protected under all laws of political correctness. But here's the thing. I've been on the Jon Stewart show. I've been on your show. I've seen you make about 5 George Bush IQ jokes per night. There's no one I know who can't do it. You know what I think? This is now the joke that stupid people laugh at. It's a joke that any dumb person can laugh at because they think they're smarter. They can prove they're smarter than the president, like the people who make booing and mooing noises in your audience.
But sometimes it's
none of whom are smarter than the president.
But sometimes a cigar is really a cigar. Sometimes a guy really is a moron, and sometimes we think that because he can't string a sentence together. It's easy to.
You're looking at me?
No, I'm talking about George Bush.
Yeah, but I mean, I was.
Wait a second. You've met him. You've talked with him, right? I mean, you've been in the White House trying to explain the difference between a Sunni and a Shia. What is your take on it?
Well, I mean, he was very attentive. He asked a lot of questions. No, I'm not being facetious. But I haven't
You're not being facetious. Everyone's avoiding facetiousness.
I'm not being facetious. I haven't interacted with him enough to be able to give a definitive answer to your question. But he was very engaged, and he asked a lot of questions. In other words, at least he was not tuned off.
But is that partly because he needed to ask a lot of questions? Because he went to war based on praying instead of thinking about Iraq, and therefore he didn't know what he should have known at the cost of people's lives?
Well, this issue of lack of knowledge about Iraq is clearly, one cannot deny it. That, we looked at the best case scenario about that country. We made assumptions that didn't come true, including the fact that Shiites and Sunnis and Kurds are going to all want to be one happy family. But I think at least one positive thing, if that's the case, is that there's a lot more listening going on. And I think that's a good thing.
The great humanist intellectual Henry Kissinger, who everyone cites as a great academic and intellectual, said in his Washington Post op-ed piece, we should avoid attacking a Sunni majority country like Iran. Okay, that's what you get from the realist side. I was at Oxford with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is more intelligent in some ways, better educated than George Bush, but Bill Clinton would change his mind according to the last expert he met or the last book he'd read. And George Bush knows one big thing, which you don't have to be smart to know. These people mean us harm. They are our enemies. And there is no compromise with them, and there's no coexistence with them, and you don't have to be clever to believe that. You only have to be clever to snigger at it, which you have a backup crew
on who means us harm. I think we really have to be clear on who means us harm here. It's called September the 11th. You know, it's still Al-Qaeda stupid. You know, and we've taken our eye off the ball. This crowd accuses Democrats of cutting and running. No, they cut and ran from Osama bin Laden 4 years ago, and now they're trying to figure out what the hell mess they got us in Iraq.
Let me move the discussion on to what happened this summer with the airlines. As people know now, everything has changed with the airlines. I'm a little pissed off because I cannot take Astroglide on my carry-on, and this is really cock-blocking my lifestyle because you never know when you're going to meet someone on the flight. And so we are aware that we cannot take certain liquids and gels anymore, but there are some things that you cannot take on the plane, and I mean you really cannot take on the plane. And I agree with these. These are the red flags to me. Look at this. Dr. Scholl's shoe bomb inserts. I tell you, right there... Arm and Hamas baking soda. Now, come... Martyr sauce. Come on. Jihad, your hair smells terrific. That to me is a red flag. Soap on a fuse. TikToks, right there. And these are real sheiks. I'm telling you, this is... Behead and shoulders. That... Pray and walk. And, of course, watch out for Hezbollah. Okay. So I'm just pissed off about this because it seems to me like we are all being inconvenienced on the airlines continually, more and more so, and people are such sheep. A day after this happened, where you couldn't take liquids, because now they're going to try to blow up with liquids, everybody was like, okay, that's it. If somebody tried to put a bomb in their hairdo, we'd all be there the next week, I got to shave my head. Got to shave my head to get on the plane. And don't we have to start looking for bad people instead of bad things?
You could not be more right. Not only do they do this stupidity in a case that hasn't been brought to court yet, let alone proved, they tell you what liquids you can bring on. So they tell the people what they can go do. Go to the doctor, get a prescription for a liquid. Do you think that's beyond them? I don't think so.
Right.
Go and do mother's milk, fake up some mother's milk. That'll get you on. You can do that. They tell them the exceptions. It's the maximum collective punishment of the innocent combined with the minimum deterrence to the guilty.
Yeah.
It's stupidity on a kind of Homeric scale.
El Al Airlines.
That's done.
Israel, which is much more of a target than we will ever be, they seem to find a way to run their airline safely because they're not afraid to do what we were talking about before, effective police work, which includes profiling, but not necessarily profiling by race, although that has to be accounted for to some degree.
They profile by behavior at the airports.
Right.
And they're proactive. We're always answering the previous problem.
And they have a marshal on every plane.
And they have a marshal on every plane. But, we always are answering the thing they did before. So we're profiling now Middle Easterners. But nobody's profiling, say, if they're recruiting, say, Westerners, blonde and blue-eyed people to do this.
Wait till the zipper bomb.
The zipper bomb. You mean they'll have to check your... I'm glad I'm not a polar bear. That's all I can say, because I wouldn't want to... All right, he co-authored the book Crashing the Gate, and his website, The Daily Kos, is America's most widely read blog. Please welcome on our satellite right now, Markos Moulitsas. Markos Moulitsas. I saw that name, and I thought you were the guy who dated Paris Hilton. No.
Not even close.
But you are the blog king. 20 million hits. I thought that was porn when I read that. 20 million hits. I mean, how did you get to be the head blogger in charge? Why there's so many people who blog. Why did you rise to the top of this?
Well, there's nobody in charge. I mean, that's one thing about the blogosphere that I think is a very solid truism, is that nobody really is in charge. I'm not even in charge of my own site. What I think I did, and was very effective, was I created a forum for people to participate, and not just to sit there and come and listen to me, but to actually engage with each other and have a back-and-forth conversation. So it's not like me sitting at the top, sending out marching orders. It's people talking, engaging, and deciding collectively how they're going to move forward, trying to make this a better country.
But blog is a dumb word, isn't it?
It's a dumb word?
Yeah, I mean, I hate that word blog.
Oh, it's atrocious.
Cool.
Yeah, but we're stuck with it. So.
But what about blogger? Like, what's up, blogger?
Yeah, it's not going to do it either.
Can we get that going?
No, I don't think that'll do either.
Blogger, please.
Blogger, please.
Well, you must be doing something right, because the Republican National Committee is all over you now. They called you a partisan nut root. I never even heard what a nut root. Apparently, that's you.
Well, Republicans are scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. I mean, what else are they going to run on? They're not going to run on Katrina, on record deficits, on Iraq, on the mess that they've done in their inability to capture Osama bin Laden. I mean, they've got nothing. People do not like George Bush anymore.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing. They seem to win elections.
Well, that was when they had something to work with. I mean, things are changing dramatically. The American people are finally turning away from them. We saw that very dramatically with the We Hate Gays effort that they just tried to do a couple of weeks ago.
But this is what I heard in 2004 when John Kerry ran. It's like, oh, the people are turning away. They caught on to them.
Well, Bush wasn't at 30% in the polls at the time. So it's now, I'll never underestimate Republicans, don't get me wrong, but things are changing. There's something happening in this country, and we're starting to turn the corner. And I know somebody else has used that term quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you know what's happening here is that strategically attacking me is pretty ridiculous. And I'm not running for office. I'm some guy in California. I have a name ID of perhaps 0%, so nobody knows who I am. So I'm not quite sure what they think they're accomplishing, but I do know why they hate me so much, and people like me. And that's because we're getting people engaged in politics, giving them a vested interest in their democracy. They're running for office, they're getting involved in campaigns, and are trying to hold their government officials accountable. And if there's one thing Republicans hate, and some Democrats, is they hate people who try to hold them accountable.
Okay, Cos. Thank you very much. You keep doing your thing.
Thank you.
A lot of people say that his blog is the left-wing version of what goes on AM radio with Rush Limbaugh and those people. And they both just fire up their base. And speaking of fire up their base, this is this week's Time magazine. I like Time magazine, but I tell you, the lover, hater, I would file this under part of the problem and not part of the solution for the media. Because, first of all, I find it very intellectually dishonest. Because Hillary Clinton is not the kind of person who, if they would just report on her accurately, you really love or hate. There are people like that. I'm sorry, but she's too dull for that. She's a centrist. She's a good worker. She's a nice person. She's not the kind of person that you have to choose love or hate. Why can't I just like her as a friend, like her husband?
You know, the polarization of this country, you got to go back to Karl Rove here. He has used this effort to drive a wedge between the American people and co-opt their 51% by teeing off the other 49. What is happening now is a complete reaction against that, which is why they're going to lose at the polls in November in House and Senate races across the country. Because the American people generally, especially in a war in terms of terrorism, need to be united. And they're looking for somebody who is strong and positive and assertive, not somebody like Rove and his slime machine that goes out there to trash every veteran who runs for office that doesn't agree with the president.
And succeeds at it. I mean, you all talk
Unlike the fastidious Mr. Dick Morris, who was invented by Hillary Clinton and reinserted into our politics twice, a man as sordid as the day is long. Everyone seems to have forgotten what the Dick Morris regime was like.
Right.
That was called triangulation, by the way. It's not... if you want to split people evenly, that's partisanship, that's giving them a choice. Triangulation is pretending to give people a choice and manipulating it.
Would you not agree...
However, you're right. I agree with you. My answer to that is no more covers like that.
Yeah, it's
no more covers like that.
I think we're already past that. I mean, everything we've been talking about is that people are at the stage of asking why. Why like her or why hate her? And I think that's the more important question.
I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I swear to God, I think it's in the interest of corporations to keep the people stupid. And the best way to keep the people stupid is by having the people who inform them be even stupider. And when I see this coverage of this guy, this John Mark Carr guy, I'm like, is the media kidding? This guy, how could he be the murderer? John Bonet was not famous until he was murdered. They talk about him like he was the guy who killed John Lennon. But John Lennon was famous before. I think it's just, they just like to go after this story because John Bonet sells papers.
But you're doing it now. You're doing it.
No, I'm not.
We don't care about John Bonet Ramsey or this nutbag.
No, I don't care about John Bonet Ramsey. I care about the fact that when I turn on CNN to watch about something important, I see John Bonet Ramsey.
So keep it quiet. Keep it quiet. Don't mention it.
Yeah, but also it's all mixed in with the real news. So you sometimes think that he was the one who was lobbing the rockets into Israel too. You know, you start with Hezbollah and you end up with how much champagne did he have on the plane. So you don't know which is more important. What's happening in the region or this one?
Right. And I know you have to catch a plane right now. I thank you for joining us. Sorry you have to leave early. Thank you all. Terrific panel for our first show back. And of course, it is time, as always, for new rules. We would never forget new rules. All right, new rule for the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. President Bush must order the Air Force to drop leaflets on New Orleans, warning them that it's hurricane season again and he's still president. You know, here's how you can tell when a city isn't ready for the casinos to come back. When the floating craps game involves actual floating crap. It's okay if you're not sure. New rule, confessed child murderers have to fly coach. Of all the people who ever deserved to spend 14 hours listening to a crying baby and having his seat kicked, number one has got to be that guy. New rule, don't force your delusions on your children. A company in our very own third world country, Florida, is producing Armor of God pajamas. Yes, what better way to spread the message of Christ than to put your kids to sleep in a Klan robe? Sleep tight, kids. The rapture's coming. I guess we should have put a hood on that picture. New rule, if Homeland Security and the FAA 5 years after 9/11 still don't have a unified passenger watch list, haven't completed installation of explosive detecting machines, and have absolutely no system to find liquid explosives, could you at least tell us where we can hide our weed? Because I'm stumped. Up till now, I've been putting it in my hair gel. New rule, the outside world is not your house. Is it me, or will people wear just about anything to the supermarket? When you hear that announcement over the PA, clean up in aisle 7, they're talking to you. I mean, it's heartwarming that you held on to those comfy gym shorts from high school, but I can see your balls. Which reminds me, I'm out of kiwi. Terrible. Polar bears love that joke, by the way. And finally, new rule, now that an international panel of scientists has decided to cut and run on the planet Pluto, I say it's time for the United States to sever its ties with science altogether and withdraw from the solar system. Hey, it worked for Kyoto in the Geneva Convention. Sorry, Poindexters, but this is God's country, and as long as George Bush is president, the science is still out on science. Now, I know many of my Republican friends got very excited when all this talk started recently about adding 3 new planets to our solar system, because what could be better in all of life than having three new things to name after Reagan? But then they realized what was really going on. Activist scientists were trying to get away with a little election year redistricting of the universe. Adding new planets when we should be enforcing the planets we already have. God damn it, why hasn't someone introduced the Defense of Planet Act to protect the sanctity of planethood by defining it solely as the relationship between the sun and Uranus? Good to give a laugh to a vet, even a cheap laugh. I mean, Pluto's out, Pluto's in. You let planets swing both ways like that, next thing you know, people are marrying their pets. Not to mention that adding more planets would drastically reduce our chances of winning Miss Universe. Now, we have tried to get along with the rest of the stars and the planets and the scientific principles of observation, but, you know, there comes a time when you have to say enough is enough. I want faith. I want certainty. I want Santa Claus. And the Star Wars missile shield. And tax cuts and wars that pay for themselves. I want our kids to learn that the stars in the sky are really bedazzled beads on the Virgin Mary sweatshirt. I want Terry Schiavo to wake up back in Kansas with her little dog Toto and a bedroom full of overly familiar farm hands. I guess what I'm saying is you're either with us or with the scientists. The most important American right is the freedom to never have to learn anything. Too much information isn't just a cliched way to say shut up. It was actually Bush's campaign slogan. So whenever someone tells you we evolved from apes, or the earth is getting warmer, or they've used something called a telescope to learn more about heaven, just tell them, TMI, brainiac. Go back to France, or even worse, the Democrat Party. Because this is America, and there's only one question that needs to be answered here. Are you ready for some football? All right, that's our show. I want to thank my guests, Christopher Hitchens, Vali, Nasr, Max Cleland, Markos, Moulitsas, Elvis, Costello, and Spike Lee. Thank you, folks.
On HBO, the picture of domestic bliss as seen through the eyes of comedian Louis C.K., the HBO original series, Lucky Louie. Next on HBO.
HBO Documentary Films presents When the Levees Broke, a Requiem in 4 acts, a Spike Lee film. See an encore presentation of all 4 acts, Tuesday night at 8.
Give me the knife. This place is gonna be a misery.
Every bully can't shut up except when he's afraid. When I hear his voice, I see the inside of his skull.
Let you pass, Paul. You willing to die in her stead? I gotta take her.
At least I can say I threw you out if you'd rather die than live with me.
In the aftermath, play the lie is mine, knowing I speak of you in heaven.
Bring it.
I came, I saw, I conquered.
Oh, hey, I got a pilot this week.
Turn!
Hi!
Look, I'm channeling Joey Ramone.
What do you got? What do you got? Come on. Show me a little love,
Entourage. The past 3 episodes back to back, starting Saturday night at 10:15.
Straight ahead, together, right ahead. We'll see you at the party. Thank you.
And now, the HBO original series, Lucky Louie.
Hey. Why are you dressed like that?
Yes, I'm getting married.
What? When?
Later today.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Hey. Wait a minute, who are you getting married to?
My mother's friend.
Why?
One of my teeth is rotted. If I marry her, I can use a Medicaid.
You getting married to get a tooth fixed?
I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah, but what you're doing is crazy.
What's crazy? Get married, eat her pussy like I promised? Get my tooth fixed? Then divorce the old twat and tell her to go fuck herself.
Ah, jeez. She's gonna fall in love with you.
What are you gonna do if she doesn't want to divorce you?
Who cares? She's 80. I'll cut the brakes on her scooter.
Okay, well, good luck with that.
Thanks. By the way, assholes, we're registered at Crate and Barrel.